got into it.
Yeah. So I'm here with Harley Ingleby in Hawaiian South Shore. He came in actually for his honeymoon.
Yeah.
And he was kind enough to come over here and do a rundown about the boards and then also Thunderbolt. So how did you get involved with Thunderbolt?
I was just very lucky. Yusumi Tomo just reached out one day and just said he'd like to make us a board, and we just got talking. This is before he had Thunderbolt. The name was really out there, and just talking to the guy, I could tell the guy was just such a wealth of knowledge, and he really understood that surfers really want to make the most of the way the boards feel, more so than the way they look or whatever. So it was just a unique opportunity to be able to work with a guy who had so much knowledge and really sort of push myself with the way the boards feel underfoot. And for me it was sort of perfect because Bill Tolhurst and I, we've just gone so far with pushing PU and direct lam epoxy as far as we could, and we knew what felt best for me at the time, but they were only so strong. So to be able to try and go even further with the feel and obviously have strength with the carbon and the composite construction, it was an amazing thing to get
so
to do.
Yusan approached you, or you just ran into him somewhere? And...
No, I don't even know where he got my contact. Just was sort of an out of the blue, and
he had you on the radar.
And then as it turned out, at the same time he was already talking with CJ Nelson, which I didn't even realise that at the time. And then when we very first started to come together, it was all of a sudden it was like CJ and I, and we've travelled together and knew each other for years. It was kind of awesome to sort of be able to work with him as well and sort of bounce off CJ as well as Yusan. And
so when he made a bunch of boards, did they just make a bunch of boards and had you guys try them out? Or?
Yeah. So the first time round, CJ and I both flew over to Japan, and they just built us. I just said, build me my HIHP. Actually, he built me a few diamond drives as well. And CJ had his classic and I think something else, or maybe it was just his classic. But yeah, basically they were plain white boards. They just had nothing on them other than it was our models. We'd sent over a board and all that. Got him set up, and then the boards just literally had in text or a number on them. So it's kind of like stab in the dark sort of thing, It was just like, you go ride number 1 to 4 and just tell you. We're not going to tell you what's inside or anything. They all look the same, and it was like, which one feels best? And it was still, it was my board, so I just put it under the arm. I was like, yep, looks and feels like my board. Just blind testing on the flex, and it just so turned out that CJ and I, without talking to each other, both picked the same number. So it was very validating to have someone trying to surf classic style, traditional, on a thicker rolled bottom and deck board versus me on a sort of flatter planing performance longboard, and we both liked the feel of the same flex. So we knew we had a really good starting point, that we both picked the same flex pattern right from the start, and then from then he told us what was in it, and then we started just like, okay, how can we tweak this? And that's sort of where we came up with Thunderbolt Red. That's where it came from. Since then, the width and thickness and the depth of the T-stringer, those things we started to play with and tune. And right down to, depending on what the board was built for, we would, again, vary those. So my HIHP, just by design, being a thinner board, we could go deeper with the T-stringer and wider, and more often than not, you're going to be riding that in more powerful waves. So we could have a deeper, thicker stringer in that board, and then say a cruiser, I'm like, well, this is only going to be ridden in small waves with less push, so let's maybe tone all that down so the board can flex more. And also just being a more of a rolled surfboard, it's going to be more stiff by design anyway. So
these things are like fine tuning a Formula One machine.
Totally, yeah. And it was just amazing to not just be stuck in a mold where it's like, hey, this is what you get, this is what we make, and this is what you get. So we're able to, the laminations, the internal structures, everything we've been able to really be hands-on and try all combinations. And pretty lucky, very thankful.
So being light, is it quirky in the water, or
No, I mean, I think, say the cruiser, if you were to compare the cruiser to another soft rail log that's a heavy PU, it might feel a little bit more corky, but I'd say all in all, they're not corky like a regular EPS board.
Yeah.
I have no problem riding them in, you know, quite solid waves. And it actually, there was a few things that sort of opened my eyes. I always thought that stiff boards were dead boards, and it's not necessarily the case. Like with the carbons, I didn't realise, you know, they were obviously a lot stiffer than a lot of my custom boards, but just the way, it might not flex as far under a little load, but the way it returns, it was just like really instant feedback, and the way it comes off the lip and the pop, it's pretty amazing. So it was sort of a new learning curve for me in the early days with that. And then yeah, just that light boards can handle like high wind situations too. Just the way he engineers them inside, they don't get that reverberation, particularly the carbons. It can be big and windy, and I just find that it still feels really buttery and nice through. So yeah, I didn't feel as though I needed the weight necessarily in bigger surf anymore, which was kind of nice. You know, there's always a time and a place where you do want more weight, but it's I'd say more often than not in anything under double overhead, just my regular weight that we targeted is what I like best.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So it was just built for performance, but it came out that the boards are pretty tough too, huh?
Yeah. So it was never, we never really had any conversations around trying to make boards bulletproof or unbreakable. It was all flex and feel throughout. But just by design, using carbon fiber and sandwich epoxy, they're just strong. They just are strong by nature. So yeah, again, we're never trying to make them unbreakable. We're trying to make these things surf as well as they can, and every 100 grams of weight that's in here, it's all necessary, like, you know, right down to the look of these boards with the brushed Xeon or the brushed carbon. It's all function over fashion. It's you know, people like the way they look, and that's great, but it's everything serving a purpose. There's nothing excess on there for aesthetics. Yeah.
Right on. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Yeah. The breakdown of the Thunderbolt technology. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.